Welcome to Conversations with Car Dealers. We're going to get personal with car dealers, many of whom started with nothing and built multi-million-dollar businesses, providing opportunities to hundreds along the way. You'll hear about some of their biggest successes and most colossal failures, along with what they're doing right now to stay ahead of the competition. I'm Zane Myers, and I've generated over $1 billion in sales building businesses over the last 4 decades. And whether you're a brand new salesperson or a big dealership owner, you're going to want to stay tuned because we're going to be digging for gold with some of the top producers in the industry. Hi, this is Zane, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Car Dealers. And we have with us today Jim Peck. And we're just going to launch right into a little bit about your history and your dealership and how you got involved in the car business and the whole shebang. So tell me about, you came from a car business family,
and
right?
I made it through that 80-81 recession with 20% interest rates. I got quite the stories to tell from back then.
Yeah, how did that go? How did you make it through? So was it a family dealership, or we talked briefly before about how you started out and your family had a dealership, or your dad had a dealership, and so frequently dealerships are passed down from one generation to another, but you had kind of a different experience. So tell me about when you started. Did you start as a teenager at your dad's dealership?
He always said he wanted me to work for another car dealer before I would work with him. And so I started washing cars at 16 years old at the local Dodge dealer while he owned a Dodge dealership at the time. And shortly after that, like 2 years later, he sold the Dodge dealership and bought a Chevrolet dealership in downtown Chicago in '79. And that's right when the interest rates shot up to 22% back then. And we lasted about 2 years. I was the only son in the family out of 4 boys who worked with him at that store. And I was like 22 years old when we closed the doors on it. The bank actually came in and changed all the locks on the doors right in front of me. They had security guards. My dad came up to me and said, "I'm going home. You stay here and watch over things." I basically saw the dealership being repossessed from my family. And I had to see that at a young age, which basically turned me into a very aggressive after that to want to make it all back on my own. And 2 weeks later,
So how did that impact your?
Go ahead.
So how did that impact your family when everything that was going on? That had to have been just terribly emotional. The whole process of something out of your control.
Yeah, I remember calling my mom saying, "Dad's on his way home. They're closing the doors on the place right now and changing the locks and all that." And she says, "Oh, Jim, I knew that was going to happen." And a week later, we were in the unemployment line in Lombard, Illinois. And the line was probably 2 blocks long outside. It was unbelievable. The guys in front of us in the unemployment line, "Where did you work last week?" "Oh, we owned a Chevrolet dealership." Dad and I are in the unemployment line. It was quite an experience. Yeah, it was devastating. But like I said, it happened to me at a young age, and I knew I would recover. And it took some time for us to get back on our feet again. I basically helped my dad through the next 8 years after that. And I knew with his knowledge and he knew how to get car dealerships. I knew how to save the money. So that was our plan. I saved up the money for the next one 8 years later.
So you were the hustle
behind him, and he.
So tell me what happened over that. What happened over that period of time until another dealership happened along, and how were you involved versus your dad? The whole thing went kerplunk. That must have made it difficult to get another dealership too, with some substantial cash. And how'd you manage to pull the whole thing off?
I got a job selling Chevrolets at the local Chevy dealer, and my dad stayed home and watched Judge Wabner all day long. And I was flipping through the Chicago Tribune about 3 years later on my desk at the Chevy store, and I saw a little tiny ad in the Chicago Tribune. It said, "Ford dealership for sale, Southern Wisconsin, currently sells 200 cars a year, $117,000, call," and it had the phone number. And that was the ad, word for word. It's still etched in my mind. So I called my dad up and I said, "Dad, find out where this is. It's in Clinton, Wisconsin." And I know it wasn't too far. And he called and he says, he called me right back and he says, "We got an appointment Sunday morning to go look at it together." So him and I went and looked at it. And while we were there looking, 2 or 3 Chicago dealer demos were pulled up from other dealers that were wanting to look at it. And I remember my dad told the dealer, he says, go out and tell those guys that it's sold, will you please? So the guy got up and went to the door and told these young whippersnappers that were wanting to buy his dealership, I'm sorry, it's sold. So we gave him $5,000 down, and we basically stroked him along for about a year and a half. Because I had 50 grand of the 100. My dad didn't have a dime. So it took my dad about a year to find that other 50 grand because he had failed in a dealership and nobody wanted to give him 50 grand. Not his sister, his mother, nobody.
Yeah, it's a real black mark. Yeah, absolutely.
And
I can understand.
then we make it to the closing.
So
a year later, 117 grand for the dealership. We go up to Madison, Wisconsin. We're sitting at the closing, and it gets to the point where we're supposed to exchange the money at the end of the closing. My dad looks at the dealer who's selling us the store, and he goes, can I talk to you out in the hallway for a minute? And him and the dealer go out in the hallway, and he makes a deal with the guy for 30 or 40 grand that he didn't even have at the closing. He didn't even bring the full amount to the closing. And the guy did a side note, came back in, and we put it together.
Wow. So that takes some brass balls.
Yes, go to a closing.
So he didn't disclose this to you?
I had no clue.
He just figured, I'm going to do this on the fly?
Yeah, he was he was quite a man. He just died about a year ago at 88 years old. He was a real car guy. He knew the car business real well, but he wasn't a real good money manager. But man, he's very good looking man, tall, blonde hair. He was a total cool car guy, I got to say.
So that's an interesting thing about cars is that there's so much money flowing in and out of a car dealer that everybody thinks all the car dealers, they're just rolling in the dough. And they are, but they're rolling in the dough going in and out. So if you don't watch your P's and Q's, it's real easy, especially when things change dramatically, to get behind the eight ball. I'm going to jump ahead because that just brings another thing to mind. So we'll maybe go back and forth in the historical context, because right now the market does seem to be changing from just a very short while ago. There were not enough cars, and it's went from, although we haven't resolved it completely with the new cars, that still is getting better. But the used cars, it's like now there's more cars than there are customers. Before there was more customers than there are cars. So how does that impact you as far as planning out and making your dealership successful, and what do you have to do differently?
Well, I cut the whole force of the dealership. I used to have 25 employees. I've got 12 or 14 now. And I always feel, small is better in times like, I always know the bad times are going to come again. So I always feel like if I'm small, I can ride through those a lot better. And it always works for me that way. It started in November now. Yeah, it started changing in November. So we just went through 3 months of not instantly making thousands of dollars. It's been a chore lately. And I'm just waiting for her to finish my financial statement for January right now. I probably broke even or made a little bit, but it's not been very easy lately. And I don't get scared about these times. I thrive on tough times because I've been in them since I was 21 years old. So when it happens, it's like gasoline in my blood that keeps me going. To think of different things and examine different employees' pay plans and stuff like that. It's all putting the puzzle together in my mind is what it is.
So it ends up that there's lower volume and then there's lower margins. Which one hits you the hardest, I guess? I don't know how to...
They both hit at the same time. That's the funny part. And then I got some used cars out there that I've hit that are getting really aged right now too. It's the kind of stuff that we paid up for 6 months ago I'd hate to even look in the book and see what they're worth now. But yeah, they both hit at the same time. We're still getting a new vehicle here and there over MSRP, but I'm in a town of 2,000 population, okay? And the people in this town, when they come in and want to buy a new car or truck and we tell them $5,000 over window sticker or whatever, they're going to flip me the bird and walk out. And those days are coming to the end though.
So
they used to take anything. Now they're just taking Super Duties or hard to find trucks. Before it was any Explorers, you name it, over MSRP. But it's in 35 years I've been in this car business, I've never seen times like that. We used to get a T-Bird maybe for every 10 years or a unique piece where we would sell it for $5,000 over window sticker. That would only happen once every 3 years maybe. And then this past year, basically every new car I had was anywhere from 3 to 15 grand over MSRP. It was just unprecedented times that we'll never see again.
Right.
I don't think, at least in my lifetime.
So do you think that makes salesmen or salespeople have unrealistic expectations as we go into more kind of normal times in the car business? I guess when you say you slim down on your staff, I would think that some of them just left because they suddenly weren't making the money that they were making.
I used to have 6 salespeople here, and I only got 2 now. And I've had 2 for the past 3 years. So, like I said, Zane, I gear up for the bad times, even when the times are good. I hate to say that, and I probably cost myself money by doing that, but
Nope.
I'm steady through it all, and that's just the way I do business.
So how do you, as far as growing your dealership, or how do you work just mainly in your market? Right. And so once that starts, and that's an arbitrage situation where one area has something and the other area doesn't have something. You can move inventory and everybody makes a little bit of money because you're in out. Really, it's a distribution thing coming from the manufacturers. So do you advertise or market outside of your market, or do you really just concentrate there in your
Very
area?
lucky, Zane. I've got 2 salespeople, like I said, and one's been here 25 years and the other one's been here 15 years. And the guy who's been here for 25 years, Randy, he's got families that have bought 10, 15 cars from him. We live on repeat and referral basically right now. I used to advertise on TV. I used to be on the radio. I was in the newspaper all the time. Basically, all we do now is Car Gurus or Cars or Auto Trader, and just a little bit of internet advertising. And other than that, it's all repeat and referral. Customer service.
Okay. You're really kind
Lucky, very lucky, Zane.
Right. So what do you think your secret is to making it through all these so tell me, when did you start the new dealership? How many years ago was it?
It's been 35 years now, and I bought my dad out about 15 years ago, and he charged me way more than anybody off the street would have paid for my half. But like I said, he was my dad, and I knew my day would come. I figured, here, Dad, take my money, have fun. My day will come, and I had no objection to that at all. But I did. I paid a hefty price to buy him out.
Yeah. But so what do you think? So now I've talked to you several times on the phone and just getting to know you a little bit. You have a key person, and I talked to Randy recently. You have a key person like Randy in your small dealer. How many cars do you have on your lot?
I probably got about 60 cars on my lot right now. Last month, we only sold like 15 or 18 cars. We were doing, back in the middle of last year, we were probably doing 35 every month. So it's dropping down now under 20, which is getting slim pickings.
Yeah. And that causes a little bit of stress. But getting back to Randy, you have somebody who's really been key that gives you a lot of freedom. So I know your office hours. Additionally, when I think of a GM, I know a bunch of people in the business. Obviously, when I think of a GM or somebody who owns a dealership, they're like the most stressed out people I know. And they're worried about, they have all these employees, they have all this money coming in, all this money going out. And for somebody to work 60, 70, 80 hours a week in that position, that's just not unusual. That's like the norm. I see it all the time. I think of this one guy in particular, and he'll call me on Sunday and he doesn't think anything about it. He's in there working on Sunday. I'm out doing my stuff with my family, although I work a lot too, confession. And that's really the way most car dealers are. How is it that you've been able to still run a successful business and get somebody trained up to the point where they can do so many things except for maybe a few big decisions? How did you accomplish that? Because a lot of dealers would be really jealous of what you've done.
Yeah, you got to pay. The old saying, you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. You have to pay. And so you found out that I've been living on my boat down in Key West, huh? I said, you found out I've been living on my boat down in Key West. Yeah.
I just know
I get a lot of freedom.
I just know it's when I call you, you're not really there.
And my wife always said to me, go to work. And I tell her I work from the neck up. It's not hard to do. Neck up in your mind. You don't have to be there as long as you
Right.
got everything in your head that you want done and the plan and the puzzle in place.
So there's so many dealers out there now that they're being approached by these big conglomerates that want to buy up everything.
Yeah.
You know who they are. But at some point, maybe you're going to. Do you have anybody else in your family who's going to step
Well,
in? Or
I've got a 23-year-old son who's a YouTube influencer. And he's starting to make a little bit of money doing that. And he's really got dreams of making $1 million doing it. So I got to give him a chance to see if he's going to make a good living doing that or not. And in the meantime, yeah, I am getting solicited by big dealer groups. They call me all the time, and I'm just not ready to sell until the day where I'm stressed and I have to be here 10 hours a day and I'm not happy. If that's not happening, and that's not the case right now. So until that happens, I'm going nowhere. I'll keep it for a lot longer. And then when it does come time, I would probably go from within before I would sell to an outsider. Got some dedication to my people.
So give an opportunity to somebody right there. So what do you think about the future of the car business going forward? I'll throw Ford under the bus here. They've said some things that have negative overtones in them for dealerships, and talking about, almost sounds like they'd like to get rid of them, and they're envious of Tesla and their margins. And how do you feel like the relationship between manufacturers and dealers is at this point, and what do you think the future is?
It's with that EV program they just came out with, where they want us to invest $1 million to sell their EV. They say 2/3 of the Ford dealers signed up for it. I was definitely in the 1/3 that did not. There's no way in the world I'm going to do that. I'm in a small town of 2,000 population, and I don't need that kind of stuff. I don't have people coming in EV crazy. And to be honest, I don't think it's going to go over as big as they think it is. I think it's going to be a passing fad where we're still going. Maybe it'll be 20 or 30% of the cars in 10 years, whatever. But it certainly, in my mind, isn't going to be all EV in 20 years. I really don't feel that way unless they cut the cost.
I honestly, I'm right there with you.
But Zane, I've got 35 good years here. All right. And if I hate to say it, but if something happened and I had to leave tomorrow, I would never regret. I've been happy. I've enjoyed my life here as a car dealer, and I would never, ever look back and say, darn it, I wish I could have done this or done that. I did everything I wanted to do, and this could disappear tomorrow without a dime in my pocket, and I would still be a happy man. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. If you were talking to somebody young, starting out, and they were thinking about, what am I going to do with my life? What would you tell them about the car business or getting involved in the car business?
I hate to say it, but I don't know if I would wish this on a young person nowadays. You have to, man, you really got to have, you're either there or you're not. There's a car guy and there's a non-car guy. You know what I mean? There's really no in between, I don't think. If you're not a car guy, you'll get swallowed up in this business. You will. You'll never make it. And it's for a young person, boy, I don't know. It would be a lot of work to start from scratch and build up a place like this on your own and have to get your own people in. And
so you did it, but so you were a younger man back then, and I mean, you had all those long hours and hustle and worry and stress and everything when you're going way back.
Yeah, when I was 16 years old, if I saw the local car dealer at the local gas station, he would get out of his car and put the pump in his car. I'd think to myself, wow, there's Mr. Solozzi from Solozzi Edelson Chevrolet. And they were like gods to me, and I was 15 years old. So the way most kids look up to country rock stars or whatever, I used to look at car dealers like that when I was a kid. They were my idols. They were the gods in my eyes. They dressed nice. They wore gold chains. They drove shiny brand new cars. What more could a guy want? And that was my dream, to be a car dealer. And I've never thought of anything else other than that. That's all I ever wanted to do.
So you're just saying, if somebody's going to be successful in this business,
they have to love it. Just like you tell your kids, do what you love. If you don't love it, get out of it. You have to love what you do. How many people are going to love working 12 or 15 hours in the car business, going through the ups and downs? And it's not easy. It is not easy.
So when's retirement?
Like I said,
for Jim Peck, or just whenever?
Whenever my boat breaks down in Key West.
So I think we're going to wind it up on that note. Or any other last bit of wisdom that you'd have about your journey in life and what it might. So if somebody else was in the car business and was a car person, how they might be able to get ahead, to get their own dealership, go from salesperson to sales manager to things have changed so dramatically. What would you say to somebody who really was a hustler, was a car guy, and really starting out from salesperson, but saw himself, I'm going to be big someday in this business? What would you tell them?
Number one, you got to save your money. And the main thing in this business, you have to have money in the bank in the business, because if you don't, they're going to come out and floor check you every week, like I've seen before, where they come out and count the cars. And if one's missing, they want the money on the spot for it. Ford does that all the time. And you have to build up a base of money, not only to buy a dealership, you have to have a base of money and a good backer. But once you get into business, you have to, for the first couple of years, you got to build the bank up and keep the wolves off your back. So when times do get slow, you can pay and make it through it. And once that happens, basically you're alleviating all the stress off yourself. And it's much, much easier when you got a bankroll behind you.
Yep.
Yes.
I guess life in general is much, much easier.
But so much more in the car business. Like you said, it's so up and down. You got to be prepared for those downs, man, because they come.
Yep. Okay, Jim, I think we're going to just about wind it up here. I really appreciate your time, and I look forward to talking to you again real soon.